G'day, how's it going? I'm pretty good and I hope you are too. So when you read the title of this video, you probably thought this had to be clickbait, as there's no way a 15-year-old could possibly defeat Magnus Carlsen, the current world champion, 24 times in one single day. But guess what? It's true. It really did happen. And guess who's going to tell you about it? Yep, this channel with just 300 subscribers.
Jay, perhaps you should tell your audience that the games were bullet games.
They don't need to know that, do they? Okay, just kidding. Yeah, I was going to. Give me a break, Boleslav. So, what's bullet chess? Bullet chess is 1-minute chess. Each side has just 60 seconds to complete the game. No increments, 1 minute each, and that's it. As you can imagine, quite often the players have less than 1 second per move, so the quality of those games is pretty low indeed, and blunders happen all the time. The games were played online at Lichess, the best chess server in the world, which also happens to be free. So who's the 15-year-old? He's Iranian Grandmaster Alireza Firouzia, national champion at 12, Grandmaster at 14, and he came 6th in the last World Rapid Championship. Now, before we begin, yes, I'm perfectly aware that I'm being a little unfair to Magnus, so please make sure you watch the disclaimer at the end of the video. Let's get on with the games. Let's get on with the blood and tears. That's what you're here for. In this first game, Magnus is black. Knight b4 is a threat now, so a3. And now Carlsen plays knight to h5. I would expect black to play bishop e7 here instead. Knight h5 does look a little bit weakening because white's got bishop g5, the move played in the game. Now, under normal circumstances, black doesn't really want to swap his dark squared bishop for white's one, because if you look at the pawn structure, pawns are fixed, black's pawns, are fixed on light squares, and that means he wants to preserve his best bishop, because if you look at this one on d7, it doesn't look like a very good bishop. So his good bishop is his dark squared bishop, and normally he wants to keep it. And so bishop e7 doesn't look like a good move here, but he probably has to play that. The move that Carlsen chose looks like a mistake, because now look at those squares, those light squares. White could now exploit those weaknesses by simply taking on h7. The point being that if black takes on g5, then we've got this check. And even though the bishop remains pinned, white's got too many threats here, like he's threatening to take here. He could also take with a knight. This bishop on h7 is untouchable. This position looks like a forced win. Like if black tries to defend his g-pawn with this move, white's got knight here and it's all over. Here we take, bishop g6 is coming next, etc. White's winning. So here already white could take on h7, and I think he's got a big advantage. Black doesn't need to take back on g5, but still the position looks pretty bad. So white played bishop h4, g5, bishop here, now that's on. So g4, knight d2, and now f5. And this is probably okay for black already. Okay, we've got the half-open H file. Can't really do much with it right now. We've got that square. Maybe black should take. Actually, that's the move that he played. I did see it beforehand, but I couldn't remember it. So h4, and now look at that square. It looks like a beautiful square for a knight, and that's why white goes knight to b5. So knight d6, the rook has to move, and now queen c3. It's not easy for black to move his e-pawn and block the diagonal, because then f5 would be weak. So rook here, and white castles here. I think white's got a very nice position already. has to undermine this pawn so that this knight can be attacked. Thrown mate, or a winning checkmate attack after queen check and then queen g7 checkmate. So queen takes, and in this position white simply played g3. Queen retreats, takes, rook here, and now white removed his king from the c file. White wants to keep queens on the board, and here in this position I guess Magnus should go knight here, knight e5. It's a logical move. Instead of that, he played a6, which is a very difficult move to explain. I mean, I don't know what white was threatening. Maybe he was worried about knight b5 or something. I don't know. But now white's got a very nice combination, very simple one. But you know, this is bullet chess, so these things work. Knight takes, and the whole point is we're clearing this diagonal so that the queen can come to c5 and pick up the unprotected rook. Which is what happened, because he can't really do much about it. And of course this is totally winning. But this is bullet, anything can happen. Nice move. The bishop can come to b3 now and attack d5. So queens have come off, and white simply the exchange up. And he won pretty quickly. Actually, something really weird happened later, which shows how difficult bullet chess can be, or I'm not sure whether I should say difficult or how silly it can be. Like in this position, all white needs to do is king to a7 and his pawn is going to promote. Instead he played this, and I'm pretty sure both players had less than 5 seconds to complete the game. He didn't take, and here Magnus resigned. Like yeah, white's picking up all the pawns. Yeah, I don't know. In this first game, what I like about Firuzia's play is that he made no mistakes whatsoever, hardly any mistakes, which is pretty hard to do in a 1 minute game. All right, let's get on with game number 2, where Carlsen is black again, and he plays the horrible Dutch defense. I don't know about this variation. It doesn't look very good, to be honest. Okay, there's some X-ray attack here, so black should probably move his king out of the diagonal. And this is a new move, and it doesn't look very good, to be honest. It just loses pawn, and white's playing knight d5 next. The queen can't take on e6 because of knight takes c7 with a knight fork. So knight takes knight, pawn takes, and this is just horrible. This move makes things even easier for white. He's winning a piece now. Okay, he's thrown in rook d1, and there's a little bit of pressure against b2. And here maybe black should take, so that if pawn takes, then he's got rook to d3, or if we take with bishop, then maybe he can bring his rook here and attack those pawns. Instead of that, Carlsen played rook to b5 immediately. Now the bishop is on. And here, if we swap rooks, then maybe black's got some chances to survive because of those 3 connected pawns, but instead of that, white activates his rook. This is a much better move. And yeah, a5 just loses. He should probably go bishop f6 here. The refutation is very nice. Exclamation mark. And here Carlsen gave up. Yeah, I think Carlsen should seriously consider giving up the French. See, game number 3. Carlsen is black again. In fact, he's black in the next 10 games. Yeah, I don't particularly like this variation for white. Karpov has played it a few times, but I don't know. I think the critical move here is d4. Bishop g2, I think it's highly dubious. Black gains control of the d4 square now. Makes sense. And here, I think black should go knight here and then put his knight on d4. Instead of that, he plays f5, which I don't particularly like. I don't really understand why he didn't go knight f5 here. It's the most sensible move. He wants to defend the knight so as to be able to play b4. Okay, now he definitely wants to get rid of that bishop there. And here, white's got a very nice idea. He can actually take on c6, because if pawn takes, then white can take on e6. If the rook retreats, the knight can come back to b5. So this is a cool idea. Maybe white to take, because yeah, it is true that the pressure along those diagonals looks pretty nasty, but I think white's probably doing okay. h3 so as to be able to move our king here, and then we can play f3. And if this threatening queen takes, then we bring our king here, takes, and then we defend that guy, and eventually, I don't know, maybe we're just going to go rook queen here and get rid of the pressure that black has. We can also play a4 later to defend our a pawn, and I don't really see what black's going to do here. But Carlsen, I mean, you know, when you're playing bullet chess, you've got to make up your mind and make decisions in a fraction of a second. So knight b5. Queen's come off now. Okay, we've got those double pawns, but they're really difficult to attack. Black's not really going to be able to create any threats along the g-file. Cannot bring his king to e7 because of knight takes f5, but this could be a threat now. Yeah, maybe d4 could be a threat also. So black plays this so that if the knight ever captures back on d4, then this will be on. Yeah, this rook, white's rook, has become very active. That pawn could end up being lost. This is on. Yeah, I think white should take on d6 now. King takes, and then we take here. There's pressure here and there. If king takes, then rook takes. And if he takes back with the pawn, then I guess we're going to go rook check, king here, and then pick this up. Should be a winner for white. Instead, white played d4, takes, and bishop takes, rook to h7. Maybe this would have been a more cunning idea, threatening rook takes, pawn takes, and then the rook comes to c7 and delivers checkmate. As it happened, Carlsen now blundered with d5, and he was checkmated after rook to c7. Yeah, what I'm seeing in these games is that Fieruzia doesn't really make too many blunders. Maybe some of his moves are not amazing, but it's really difficult not to blunder when you play 1 minute chess. And yeah, he plays a lot of reasonable moves. Let's see game number 4. Carlsen is black again. All right, we've got some pressure along the c-file. Knight d4 looks like a reasonable move now. If bishop takes, pawn takes, knight d5. We don't have to go for queen takes rook. Black can simply play queen d7 here. And this looks pretty even. Black's going to go e6. In fact, I think in this position, white's got to be careful because black controls the c-file. Takes, knight d4. And this is a good option now. Okay, it's risky because this pawn looks incredibly powerful. Yeah, maybe knight g5 here. Cannot defend with f6 because of knight e6, so he's got to go rook f8 and then queen e3, attacking these two. Yeah, I don't know. If we go rook c5 here, I think white can take on e7, and suddenly this is a nasty threat. So what else can black do? He can't go rook c7 to defend because of queen e5. So yeah, this would have been tricky. Queen f4, not so good. Queen d5, trying to stop the pawn. Yeah, extremely risky for white. This is this looks pretty good for black, I must say. Okay, black wants to double up. Oh, sorry, he actually wants to go rook c1 and then promote. Counting on these and possibly knight g5. Looks a bit desperate, but it could get tricky, particularly in a bullet game. Yeah. If now he gets a queen, then we've got perpetual. So instead of that, Carlsen took here, which protects this square. If knight takes, then we can promote. Check, king here. And in this position, I mean, I'm not going to say that Carlsen missed a win here, but he did have a win. He could have played h5, and now after king to f3, he's got this move. And after knight takes, then we just promote and everything is protected. And if the knight moves again, then we've got queen there, and yeah, white's getting checkmated. Instead of that, he played rook to h6, which is a weird move. Check, and then white picks up the rook, and it's all over. Played this now, knight f6, and he resigned. All right, let's take a look at game number 5, where Furuzia was white again, and by transposition we got into this Dutch defense again, Leningrad variation. And white played c5 rather than queen to b3. I think I like queen b3 better, but let's see what happened. e6 again, and here I guess one would expect moves like rook to d1 or perhaps bishop to g5, pinning this guy. Instead of that, white chose this gambit, this sacrifice, which I don't think is entirely sound. White's got a few tricks up his sleeve, but nothing too serious. Okay, if the queens come off now, then after pawn takes, the rook will need to move, and then the pawn on a7 will be on. So black doesn't want to trade queens just now. And again, if the rook takes on c7, white's got the in-between move, queen takes queen, followed by bishop takes c7, winning the exchange. So black chose this one instead. Knight h5, bishop d6, bishop takes pawn, knight here, e3, and now knight e8 was definitely a good candidate move, but instead of that, black chose b5. 98 again, yes. And now the knight on c7 is on. So white's got this desperado idea, but still he's going to be a pawn down. Okay, and this would be very difficult to calculate in a game, but this move was tricky, intending bishop h3. The point being that after rook takes, black's got f3, and if the white rook takes that pawn, suddenly black's got this nice idea threatening rook takes bishop, which at first sight looks pretty hard to stop. White's going to go maybe h4, and then after rook after rook takes f1, he can play king to h2, and if the rooks double up on the 8th, maybe, like if we go g4 immediately, black can go rook here, and then I don't see how white's going to stop rook check and checkmate. So white should go king here instead, threatening to run away like this, and if black goes h5, then we still have g4. Surprisingly, this king is quite safe in this position. So yeah, I mean, f4 is a move you only play if you're positively sure that you're winning, and black's a pawn up here, so you might as well choose something less radical. So bishop d7, king g2, bishop b8. I don't know about this move. Bishop b8, rook down. And now that's pinned, and white also threatens bishop takes pawn. So rook here. And now that's on. White, yeah, black's becoming a little bit passive now. That's on again. Rook to b7. Yeah, maybe black should just settle for an equal endgame with bishop d7 here. Instead he played these, and look at those passive pieces. I'm not too happy about that. Okay, I don't think black can defend that pawn anymore. Rook to f6, we trade, and now the endgame is pretty equal. After rook b6, if the rooks come off, the endgame is drawn. And okay, after rook takes pawn, rook takes, white's rook is definitely more active, and maybe at some point white threatens to create some checkmate threats. But I don't think rook takes b3 would lead to a defeat for black. Should be still equal. Black chose this anyway. And yeah, the endgame is now uncomfortable because black's got problems with those pawns. And yeah, Firouzja went on to win from this position. There are several points where Carlsen could have drawn the game, but and the most dramatic one comes right at the end. I mean, I'm not blaming them because you know, they're playing instantaneously, and it's so easy to blunder when that happens. Here, for example, white chose rook to g6, and now Carlsen can trade rooks and bring his king to the corner with an obvious draw. I don't know. Look at this, rook to f6. This is the kind of move that that you make when you've got, I don't know, a couple of seconds left on the clock. And white didn't even take it. Yeah, now, and the game, yeah, apparently white won on time here. Quite a dramatic end to fighting game. Let's see what happened on the 6th game. Okay, Carlsen is black again. We've got this position. As you can see, white's fighting to control the d5 square. But now he can strike on the queen side with b5. I think this should be fine for black now. Maybe you should just get rid of this bishop. Yeah, because after knight b3, apparently white can gain the advantage after knight e7 check, and the point is that the queen is overloaded. So if the queen takes, we can pick up the rook, and if the queen doesn't take, then we've got bishop c6 supported by the knight, winning the exchange. So yeah, knight b3, not so good. Knight b7, same idea, but not as good as knight e7. Rook to b6. The white queen is on, so we trade queens. White's got control of the square, of the d5 square. Maybe not such a big deal though. Yeah, this position should be fine for black. Not sure about this move, because that pawn could become a target later on. In fact, it does become a target, and white does win it. Going after the pawn. Okay, this is a very nice idea. Even though white has one pawn, this knight on a4 is completely misplaced, and it's not so easy to bring it back into play. I mean, if white could get rook to c2 and increase the pressure against c5, but that's going to be pretty hard to get, because yeah, how does the rook get to c2? It's practically impossible. Takes, bishop d2, king g6, threatening the bishop, and now this goes on. Just got to do something about it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this move. Black can simply take it, and then white takes on c5, but obviously is not enough. So Carlsen took on a4. Maybe it was a pre-move, like he didn't see any move that white could play, so he knew he was going to take on a4. Okay, so black's got two minor pieces for white's rook and the pawn, but black should be winning here, or very close to anyway. Yeah, c4 is going to be hard to stop, and it's a really strong idea because black's going to get a dangerous passed pawn on the d file. Yeah, bishop b5 is probably a blunder. He should have tried c4 right now. And if pawn takes, then d2 is very strong. So after c4, if he plays bishop to c6, black can trade and then take on d3, and these pawns are actually pretty dangerous. You know, you can picture a position where black goes d2, rook here, and maybe just rook e8, and all those dangerous threats. In the game, black played these, but now he's got a problem. Maybe he should bring his bishop back to a4, but it's kind of embarrassing. So he took here, but now I don't think he's got enough compensation. Yeah, these pawns have potential, particularly the d pawn, but yeah, those pawns are under control now. And b3 is a critical move. If you take with the pawn, we can take on d3. If you take with the bishop, we can still take on d3, because if pawn takes, then the bishop falls. And yeah, black's got some counterplay here. I don't know about this. Should take on actually rook to b5 was all right, but he should take on f5 now. He played this king to f1. Again, both players must have had very little time left on the clock, and the end game ended like this. And after g4, Carlsen lost on time.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.